the bad cop, good cop, I don't care. Because I know that cop puts on his good cap when he sees me and he pulls me over. Because my daddy's a cop. I know, and the only reason that I'm here is because of the conversation that took place between me and one of my African American friends. And the friends that I had, or the classmates that I had in my classrooms, that would say, you know, this is what me being pulled over is like. And I said, you have got to be joking. I was like, this ain't real. But it is. Yes. But it is. And I get a pass, and that's not fair. No. That's not fair. So whether it's our minds or whether it's the conversation, it doesn't start without conversation. So I commend you guys for putting this together. We found out through a flyer. I don't understand why I understand because I have education background in the studies. But the fact that I don't know your experience is detrimental to the whole system. Because I know my friends or my white counterparts, if they knew y'all experience, it would be a completely different ballgame.
Some of them.
I do agree. We have ignorant people in this system that are colorblind and don't want to see it. I totally understand. But I was a colorblind person until I heard the experience.
Would you feel like you're colorblind even though people vocalize it in different ways all the time? Was it different hearing it from a person that you actually know?
No, I feel like if it would, like if you're saying we had a community gathering where we, hypothetically explained our experiences, I see human, whereas some people don't see human. So therefore, it's a hard answer for me to give you just because I know how to treat someone equally because I've been educated and I've also heard non-equal experiences. And the fact that the bad cop hat gets put on way more for a person of color than a good hat, for the good hat to come to me is completely unfair. So it does impact how public view the law enforcement because I'm not scared of the law, but I know y'all are. Like that is mind-blowing to me, and it's only because I didn't know your experience. Like I didn't know that you can't get out of your car and you have to keep both hands on your wheel before you can address a police officer. Like what? Like I get pulled over because I have a low-ride car, but he sees I'm white, so make sure you get your light checked. Like no. And I just know that there are good people out there that do not make race an issue, even though it's embedded, that just need to be educated on the experiences. Because we're all human in this room, it's just the experiences that separate us. We'd like to think of
To piggyback off of what she's saying, I think if you look at this room, this is the opposite of the United States. Like this was the police brutality forum opened up to the entire University of Louisiana, correct? University of Louisiana is a predominantly white university, correct? But this room is still filled with predominantly black individuals. I think that it is less of a police issue. No, let me reframe. It's a great police issue. But I think more importantly, it is always and forever going to be about race because the majority of the United States is not my color, which means the majority of the United States is not being affected like we are by these very same issues. I worked at a summer camp with all white people. Might have been 5 black people. I worked there for 3 months, and several issues that was taken so seriously in my community was brought to me in such a small, minute way that it wasn't until 3 months when I got home that I was hit by what happened. And it was only because it was my people was affected and not their people. I'm sorry to say, but white people most of the time do not take issues that do not affect them as serious. And it just is what it is because at this camp, I didn't have my phone, I didn't have internet, I was cut off from the world. I had my phone on the day I was off, and you know, I spend my days off shopping, eating, I don't know, like not on my phone. So the Sandra Bland situation, didn't hear about it till I got home. It just never heard about that one at all. The thing that happened in the church with all the people being shot, it was, oh, these people in the church got shot. That was it. I'm like, you know, well, what happened? Yeah, some people, it was so terrible. Let's pray for the people in the church. It wasn't until I got home that it was specifically said that these black people got shot in the church by this white man because they were black. And that made it very clear to me that issues in the United States are seen in a different way depending on which eyes are looking at. And when the issues do not affect people of an opposite skin tone than me, it is not taken as serious. I was asked several times this summer, what does Black Lives Matter? All lives matter. Why are we saying Black Lives Matter? When you ask questions like that, I understand that you said you didn't know, but it's not, you didn't know because, I'm sorry, but your eyes aren't open to where my eyes are because it's been said. Trayvon Martin been on the screen. You know what I mean? Sandra Bland's been on the screen. It's been said. You've seen protesting. It's all over Twitter. It's all over the news. It's on MTV, BET. It's all in the media. So if you don't see it, it's because you don't look. If it's not changing, it's because people aren't changing it. It has nothing to do with it not being out there.
So you basically saying they didn't know what Black Lives Matter was, but they knew what all lives matter. Is that what you're?
Exactly. It was not. They didn't know what Black Lives Matter, and then the question was, after I explained what the whole Black Lives Matter. Well, what's the point of that? Don't all lives matter?
Right.
It's not that your life never did matter. That's what the thing is. Your life never. You know, your life was never in question. It was my life that was in question. So I had to re-emphasize that Black Lives Matter. And the police thing is an issue between black and white, and I'm sorry to say that. I know white people probably go through some issues with the police too, but it is always going to be about black and white. Like he said, it started with Klansmen catching slaves, and that's where it's ended, obviously.
Well, the way I answer that is, if Black Lives Matter, then all lives have to. No. If Black Lives Matter, if Black Lives Mattered from the jump, then there would be no reason to come up with the hashtag All Lives Matter. Right. You understand what I'm saying? And people need to understand this. And I have arguments with African Americans who say, "Oh, all lives matter. All lives matter. Why would you say that? All lives matter." And I'm saying Black Lives Matter does not mean other lives don't matter. But I use the example of when Michael Vick was fighting pit bulls, okay? You had these television shows that came out. I think one is called Pit Bosses, one is called Pit Bulls and Parolees. Am I right? Y'all familiar with it? Okay. The name of the show wasn't Poodles and Parolees. It wasn't named German Shepherds and Parolees. It was named Pit Bulls and Parolees. And basically what it was saying was, yeah, we care about all dogs, but right now y'all only fighting the pit bulls. So yeah, we care about all lives, but right now it's only black people being shot on traffic stops.
That was my point this summer, and I worked with people that was just ignorant. They didn't mean anything, just didn't know any better. And then after it, they opened my eyes to see the world for what it was. Like you told your son, you live in a fake world. I lived around majority black people my whole life. This summer, I spent every day with all white people. And to see life like they saw it, Black lives never came up because it didn't matter at all. And when I got back home, I realized that when I heard about Sandra Bland and the black people that got shot, not just the people that got shot.
Yeah, you can kind of tell that in the presidential elections when they talk about all these issues except the racial issues and the police brutality issues.
Exactly, because I'm a political science major, so education is always going to be thrown in. Healthcare, finances, never racism. You're never going to get that in the thing. Never.
And I just want to disagree on that because I feel like the public views, like, it depends on who you are. If you're in the black community, you view the police brutality as one way. And if you're in the white community, you view it as in another way because you don't see that. And I'm from a majority black community, so we see that. But I have friends that are white and they like, you go through this and a lot of times they don't even get, if I get stopped, it's red lights and red registration, all that, and they might just like, let them go, like, oh, okay, oh, just don't speed no more. So I think it's just a different viewpoint.
If I can respond real quick. Okay, then go to who? Okay, good. I understand what everybody's saying, and my opinion is this, right? I believe with all my heart that we are a human family, right? And I believe that right now, even inside of this human family, we need to be reminded that Black Lives Matter. And it's not just what we call today, because at one time there was no such thing as a white person. If you go back and look a little bit, right? But today, we need to be reminded, right, that people of African descent, people of color, that their lives do matter. It is a sad state for the human race. But at the same time, I agree with her in saying that we are a human family. And I also agree with you in saying that we need to be reminded that Black lives do matter, right? But we can't allow it to cause us to fight one another, right? You know, because I let people that just because this young lady's skin color is not the same as theirs, they figure she's a racist. And that is just as ignorant and backwards as a police officer shooting somebody for the color of their skin, as far as the mindset is concerned. It is just as ignorant. And I believe we have an ignorance problem that creates a racism problem, and we have to solve the ignorance problem. Because if you know who you are and you know where you come from, you can stand up for yourself and change the world that you live in. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. Oh, her.
I just want to jump into what you said, like, and answer your question. I'm biracial. My mom's white, my dad's black. I have a white cousin on Facebook who, I'll just start with I'm biracial. My mom is white, my dad is black. I live with my mom. And I have a white cousin on Facebook who every time a Black Lives Matter post, it's probably mine, he's responding to stuff I've been seeing from like many other ones. But he posts in response like a Blue Lives Matter or the police are being attacked type thing. Because he views us protesting for our lives as an attack directly on police and like law enforcement. So the police brutality, does it have an impact? Yeah, but like he said, it directly depends like on your race and like she said, like directly what eyes you're doing it from. Because he's never been profiled, he's never had to deal with that. He's a white boy that lives in Texas. He sees us defending ourselves. Yeah, and he said he's used the word like thug. He's made a post, you know, if thugs want to keep acting like this and the police of course will keep responding like this. He's literally said that. And my aunt tried to explain to him, you know, your cousin is black, she's done this. I reached out, I tried to explain to him, you know, this is what I deal with, this is what like I live. And he still just doesn't see it. He can't see it. So it's important to realize that sometimes like everybody won't be able to see it. So I just I agree with him. I don't see his posts anymore. Because I'm not about to keep reaching out to somebody that doesn't want to see it and that can't see it.
Well, actually, you can go ahead and start. You can go ahead and say something. Honestly, I'm going to talk about the previous question and this question.
Just like the lady said with the glasses on, she said other people need to experience and see what's going on as far as the differences that blacks, African Americans go through. It's out there. They see it. It's on social media. It's on the news. They see it. I was once told by a white coworker that racism is the culture here. And I disagreed at first because I was like, nah, seafood, crawfish, zydeco, that's the culture. And then I sat back and I thought about it and I said, you know, if you go to some islands in South Asia, cannibalism is the culture. It might not be good, but it's still the culture. They still eat people there. If you go there, they eat you. So racism down south, when he said it, I sat back and I said, you know what, you're right. It is the culture. And what you see is, on Facebook, you'll see someone getting shot on a traffic stop, unarmed, whatever. And because they didn't, the lady who they arrested because she was being sassy with the police. The first thing that many, and I'm not all, but many whites say is, they don't say, well, why did they stop her? That's her right if she wants to smoke. You know, they need to just give her a ticket and let her go on. They don't say that. What they say is, they should have listened. She should have listened to the police. She should have put a cigarette out. But yet, whenever there's someone of white skin who's open carrying his weapon, okay, and the police encounters them, then you have the fanfare of people leaving comments saying, well, that's his Second Amendment right. Why is that policeman stopping him? He has a right to carry his firearm. So there's a double standard. And I think it's partially, not partially, I think it's primarily because it's the culture. Someone said it's the culture of America. It's the culture of America.
And not just the South.
Exactly. Right.
I know that it's difficult. Like, I have lost many of white friends. I have been defriended.
For speaking up, huh?
For speaking up. I have been asked, why are you on their team? I have been asked that to my face. Like, you don't know, like, we have read in class the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Like, I have read that book. Like, I try and get the message out to my counterparts, but I know ignorance is alive and well, if not more. Well, I hate to measure race within that factor, but like they ignorant, y'all. Like I can't even speak up and I get tagged. Like, and I'm just trying to solve, you know, like yeah, it's hard. It's hard. People are ignorant, and it is definitely a culture.
Okay, so I just want to go back to the first question. Who is most affected by police brutality? It's definitely Black people. As you can see, most of us in this room are Black people. I also feel like the fact that you were trying to cut her off whenever she was telling us about like the Django and Chain and media literacy, I think that is an example of why there is such a animosity between African Americans or Black people and officers. Because we have officers who, no offense, are kind of using like a very faulty and problematic mentality, saying that, oh, we need to help ourselves, which we term as respectability politics. And really, you can't help yourself if you're not given resources. Even if you take those resources, then you're considered stealing. So I don't understand whenever you said like, oh, like no matter the mentality, are you a slave or a captive? And then on top of that, use the Django and Chain example. Like, that's a fictional story. It's a white savior story. Like, we're not trying to use white saviors. We're our own people. The same way you're saying that we have to have our own knowledge, we have to have our own pride in ourselves. We need to be able to help ourselves. We don't need anybody else to help us. And honestly, if you ask a white person, I feel that isn't aware of police brutality, and you ask them, what is your view on law enforcement? They'll tell you, oh, I have no problem with law enforcement, Blue Lives Matter, as somebody else said, because of the fact that they don't have to deal with all this stuff. White people don't have to go out in the world and fear that someone's going to pull them over just because like they're hanging with a group of people. There's plenty of white people that hang out in like groups or gangs or whatever, and no one says anything about it. That's normal. They're having fun. They're doing whatever they want to do. They're being respectable. But whenever Black people are doing it, whether it's male or female, it's an issue. So I mean,
Not
like,
all the time.
okay, but see, the thing is, me, and you're right, you're entitled to your opinion, but I feel like because of the fact that you are kind of representing like a group of people that I have a problem with, and then you're like interrupting or you're saying something, it's sort of saying like, oh, I don't care what you're saying because you're a young African-American woman, like you don't know what you're talking about. I understand that you had experience in certain things. Your experiences may, like, I'm probably not going to be thinking of the same experience that you had, but I feel like it is a problem when law enforcement, who has the power to do certain things to the group of people that I'm part of, they don't listen to us. That is a problem. That means that you're not listening to what we're trying to say and you're not improving the system. That's a lot.
I just want to come back to what Professor Winter said about like media literacy. Basically, like I know for a fact, like when you look on the news, like when you look at Trayvon Martin or something like that, what do you see? Chances are it's going to be a horrible like illustration of him, like him dressed in like baggy clothes, and make him look like he's a thug, throwing up gang signs or something like that, and that's what you see. But let's say one of these white individuals that are, say, shooting up a school. You're looking at them and they're in that high school, get up like they're getting ready to graduate from school. This is making them look like they are better even though they've done something 10 times worse. But when you see a black man that got killed for no reason, no reason, he's either in his baggy clothes, throwing up gang signs, not looking at his very cleanest. But when you see like a white school shooter or someone, or a cop that killed an individual, they're dressed up, nice, presentable. It's all the way the media is actually illustrating and making this look. And I take Professor Winter's class, and she showed us something. It was Dumbo, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the cartoon. Everybody's seen Dumbo before. Okay. It's like, and there was a portion in it where there was like a group of black workers, and they were basically putting up the tent for the circus, and they would sing a song. I forgot what the song was saying, but they didn't have a face. It was just a black person with a hat, no face, no facial expressions, making it look like that's how we are, faceless animals, without any expression, without feelings. But let it be a white character, smiling, nose, eyes, ears, teeth, all of this. But instead, while we're looking like animals with no face.
And the animals were drawn beautifully, by the way.
And the animals
they were very expressive. This was just a
those
clip.
characters just had no face at all. And they were working. Backs are breaking. That was the line of the song. Never, like, it was just a bad portrayal of black people as a whole. And the kids see that and they think that, oh, well, this is acceptable when it's not.
Real quick, right? And what I'm saying is that, and I understand that not everybody agrees with each other, but I believe we can agree to disagree if you would agree, right? How do you, for instance, you brought up Trayvon Martin. How do you see Trayvon Martin when he's portrayed on the news that way?
How do I see him?
You personally.
Well, looking from that.
No, I'm saying, how do you see him? Not what they want you to believe. How do you see him?
How do I see him?
Yes.
I just see him as a regular individual.
He's a regular individual. Now, if you feel that way, and you convince your family to feel that way, that's what starts the change. That's what I'm saying.
But we see us as us.
After this one, the next question.
All right. I disagree. Because how I see Trayvon is not going to influence, and I'm just going to use him as an example, how Paul sees Trayvon. Paul is the individual who's going to be stopping Trayvon. Okay? So it doesn't matter how I see him, it's how police officers see Trayvon. And in history, like she said, like many people said, we've been basically made out to be criminals. We've been made out to be the bad guy. And if you do your own study, I've done a study and I've seen that in violent encounters with the police, both justified and unjustified, unarmed blacks were killed twice as much as unarmed whites. And basically it's because when the police pulls, I did a research the other day, this is what I tried to find. I tried to find how many blacks opposed to whites have killed police officers on traffic stops and in the line of duty. And I tried to do the comparison because me, myself, from being a police officer, I have experienced co-workers who basically stop a guy, see he's white, and have their guards down because he's white. And when this guy gets out of the car and he's a posse comitatus, I don't know if you know what posse comitatus is. It's one of these anti-government, why the police stopping me. The Bundy guy, the guy who didn't want to pay taxes in Nevada or whatever. But basically what they do is they'll stop these types of individuals and they'll just basically, they'll range them on their skin tone or their race. And that's the person who gets out with the sawed-off shotgun and ends up killing the cops. And I tried to find statistics that show that blacks committed this at a less than whites because blacks don't have the opportunity to do that because when we get pulled over, my wife got stopped in the daytime. My wife, right here, stand up. Stand up. She got stopped on South College. Was it South College? At 7 o'clock in the morning, and she had to keep her hands on the steering wheel. Now she got out of the car, first time ever being stopped, and she got stopped by one of my coworkers. okay? And the guy says, get back in the car and put your hands on the steering wheel. Now it's 7 o'clock in the morning. She's going to work. It's not 8 o'clock in the projects or 9:30 in the projects. It's 7 o'clock in the morning on South College. So right there, did you actually think she was a threat because of her dark skin? Or what was your reasoning for making her get back in her car, and not only get back in her car, but go ahead and put your hands on the steering wheel? You know? And that's just how it is, and that's why we have the problems we have today. You have to start, like a comment I made, a remark I made. If a person doesn't say the word nigger while he's working, a cop doesn't use the word nigger, he didn't go to sleep on Monday and wake up like that on Tuesday, okay? And it takes longer than a 30-day suspension or 40-day suspension to get that particular feeling that he has about a particular race out of him. It takes longer than 30 days to do that, you know, and you have to start from the root on up.
Last question, I feel like it's been answered already, but what do you think will solve this problem?
I think that I see what all sides are saying, but I also see what he's saying on the end. I just think that minus some of the stuff he's saying, we have to, like, us as people, not just black people, but in general, we have to try to do as well as what she said. We got to work for what we have to try to fix the problem. Like, of course, the problem starts within the police force, but police officers are humans, and we are humans, which makes us equal. Which means if you start to fix the problem within humans, then if the problem is fixed within humans, then you can attack a particular force, which is once they put that badge and title and get the gun and the power. So even if you fix the police force as a title, the human can still be screwed up. Like, if the human don't view black people in a certain way, you can do everything you can to a police force. But if the officer that's taking that badge off does not respect the person, it won't change anything. So I just think that he's saying that, like, it's a double-sided thing. Like, the police force needs to be restructured, fixed, you know, accountability, all that, but also people in general have to try whichever way they can, even like this with spreading awareness, talking to peers, letting your white friends know what it really is, you know, like, try your best to make a difference, because if both sides not working at it, nothing is going to happen, because it's a people problem, it's not a police problem.
Just to jump off what you said, I agree, but I kind of disagree, just because I feel like, I mean, people are always going to have their issue with people. Like, racism is not something that could be, we can't eradicate racism. Like, that's a nice drink to have, but it's not. But if police forces held accountability, like, if the first time an officer is caught shooting and killing somebody and it's not justifiable, then that officer shouldn't be an officer again. Most of the killings that have happened in the last 4 months, the officers were repeat offenders. It was not their first time profiling somebody. It was not their first time shooting somebody. It was not their first time seeing a black person, assuming the black person because he was black was a threat, and shooting them. And if the first time an officer did that, they were actually held accountable, not suspended with pay, not put on desk duty, not in the public eye anymore, not just going into hiding, not being moved to another precinct, then the problem would end there. Officers wouldn't do that because they know if I do it, I'll lose my job. Right now, it's well, if I shoot this black person, I'm gonna get 3 weeks off and still be paid. Once it cools down, I'll be back out on the street. There's no fear.
The person who pay the person. Like, it's your job, but at the same time, what you do on your job is what you feel. So if I'm a police officer and I hate black people, I'm going to show that. It's not, I understand what you're saying, but what I was saying was, if racism cannot be fixed, what's the point? If we're not going to try to fix racism, what's the point? Because racism is where it starts. So you can do all these things, of course, but if ain't no racism.
All right, yeah.
I just want to say I just kind of like two-way street, because I kind of feel that the police department, sheriff's department, all these departments kind of teach stereotype African Americans. And the reason I say that is because I want to apply and become a sheriff, and I want to take the test and watch the videos showing group of white people coming in. They're perfectly fine. They're in with their families. They go on visitation, looking nice, well-groomed. But when the black person comes in, they're half naked, or they in sack in their pants, or do visitation hours. So that's showing you one affection, or showing you one side to where they're already stereotyping, or just placing into your mind, hidden agendas, hidden curriculum, you can say, to basically stereotyping a group of people. And we also need to fix our education system when it comes to educating African Americans as well, because it's hard to do some type of change when a lot of our schools are at the bottom of the map. Because I do a lot of work. I'm just visiting our side today because I'm doing my student teaching over there. It's a lot of non-administration. It's a lot of kids not being taught, and a lot of chaos going in the classrooms. So they're having disciplinary actions being taken place, not being taken place, or not being taken action of. So leaving school and going to do whatever you want to do after that. So it needs to start. It's a two-way street.
Just to basically say, just to back off police officers, I basically feel as though that the law enforcers are basically aware of what they have to do. They know the oath that they take, they know what they do to serve to get that gun and badge. Basically, if you ask me, I do believe that there are some officers that are law enforcers, or law enforcers that are criminals in disguise.
Okay, you got 3 more minutes, so.
What do you think would solve this problem if indeed we were all treated equally when it comes down to police officers? Just like they had 4 police officers that came for me for an alleged stop sign violation, and within that same week, another man with a weapon they did not arrest him. They did not do anything with him. You take systematic racism, which encompasses everything. When you look at the fact that Seth Fontenot, who shot 3 people, killed 1 person, wind up having to do 13 months. Judge Rowan himself have given young black men some 10 and 15, 20 years, and would not allow them to even go in his court room with gold teeth in their mouth. So we got a lot to do, and it's a good group for us to try to resolve this problem. But to me, equality. You treat me the same, just like you do River Range.
It's getting near the closing time. Sorry if I pushed your answer. I want to give all the panelists a 1-minute chance to answer this question, please, and then we'll close out the forum.
Not necessarily answering the question, it's a 1 minute.
Right. What do you think we solve this problem? Like you said, I kind of got to that kind of early. I didn't know they were going to ask this question. But this is the only question in my mind. How do we solve this problem? Because if we are not actively, each and every individual in this room, if you are not actively participating in solving this problem, you are the problem. Because this is our country. I went to Iraq 3 times on behalf of you. This is our country, and we have to take our country back and make sure that justice is served the right way. If you are not doing that as an individual, unfortunately, you are part of the problem. You cannot rely on anyone else. Nobody's coming to save you. You have to apply yourself to the problem, and then we can all work together to find solutions. One quick thing.
That's a minute.
Is it?
It is. It's beyond. It was timing it.
1 second. I appreciate your timekeeping.
I just wanted to let you know.
I appreciate your timekeeping. In 1 second, y'all gonna make me take longer than I should, right? But racism can end, young lady. We can end racism. because that racism didn't exist at one time in this world. So we can end it. Racism was created by human beings, so it can be destroyed by human beings. Education starts at home, young brother. And if we educate our children and we make sure that our children are going to schools we support, we can start to curb this problem, right? And equality is something you have to seek actively after. Nobody's gonna just hand you equality when the system is designed to not be equal, right? And that's what I feel would solve this problem. Thank you.
When he talks about racism, I equate racism to the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River is racism, okay? And there's a small breach in the levee. It's gonna take more than 50 years for that water of the Mississippi to fall out that breach and the Mississippi be empty. And that's racism. So yes, racism can one day not exist. But the breach in that levee is so small that your kids' will be dead before it does, in my opinion.
I refuse to believe that. I appreciate that.
Okay? All right? When you, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. You have a president right now. I'm going to give you two, I know I'm on a time limit. You have a president right now who has brought the country back up from a disaster. But in the minds of certain people, he's the worst. He's the devil walking the earth. Okay? Second, okay, how many blacks have died on the north side? We have 4 unsolved crimes. We had a kid that died before graduation, got shot in the mouth by his friend who didn't know the gun was loaded. Not one time did we have the show up that we had at the Grand. Okay? Not one time. Now 2 people were shot at the Grand, and of course theater shootings bring CNN, but still, the city parish president, he's right here. Every shooting in this city should bring the city parish president. Not just 2 women dying at the Grand Theater, okay? Kids dying on the north side being shot should bring the chief and the